You are now watching Crumb TV.
You're watching Crumb TV.
This is Prema Osset in Los Angeles, Leimert Park, and you are now watching Crumb TV.
You are watching Crumb TV.
We're watching Crumb TV.
You are now watching Crumb TV. So subscribe.
I am the Grand Sheikess, Unity Temple number 80, More Science Temple of America, and you are watching Crumb TV.
Yo, this is that kid 179. You're now watching Crumb TV.
Crumb TV.
Check. The grills in my mouth double as a freeze. The grills.
You will not be able to stay home, brother.
Peace and hair grease. What's up, family? It's your boy M.O.I in the building. Of course, I'm in here ready to get it popping. Shouts out to Crumb TV. Big dog in the building. Crumb TV is in the building. M.O.I is in the building. Go ahead right now and share. And y'all already know before we get it started, before we get anything going, we're going to need a couple people up in the live. I'm going to need 100. I'm going to need at least 100 people to tap in. We're already at 40. 100 people have to tap in. Okay, we're already at 40. Let's get it. Good brother, what's popping?
Peace and love, good brother. All is well. All is truly well. How are you?
All is well, man. Let's get into it. I don't know what happened to the intro just then. It went kind of went a little haywire. I was trying to correct it, but anyway. Let's do some house clean, some house cleaning real quick. You already know what it is, man. Let's highlight the first. What do you call them now? It was first responders, which I love the first responders because a lot of people be checking in super early. As soon as the notification go off, they be ready.
Yeah, you know, I did the first responders, which was the perfect trifecta.
Yeah,
but you know, you've added more respect to people's names, so you know how can I argue with that? And we just kind of read off the first people to tap in just within like maybe the first 10 minutes, first 20 minutes. Yeah, number one, True King. He says peace with the big Ashe, peace and light, family. I see you. I love you. I appreciate you.
That's True King is always tapping in. This brother always tapping in. I appreciate you, bro.
Rude Sweetie, he says, "You're Oklahoma." The thing, man. I see what you did with the wordplay, brother. Very, very clever. Oklahoma. I agree. He's nice with he's a rapper. He's very matter of fact, he was the one from Bubble and Double. He sent you a all black Bubble and Double hoodie, I think.
Yeah, this was a while ago. Hey, I need another one because I think my kids jacked that one, bro. Like for sure.
Shout out to Evolve. And that's also an anagram for love. Evolve Horse. He says, "What's up, family?" We saying what's up back. I see you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I don't know if the name has anything to do with the car, but you know, it sounds like, you know, he got something under the hood. He definitely got something. We see you. We love you. Appreciate you. Always glad to have you, brother. DJ Eclipse. See, with a name like that, family, you know he knows something. Nobody's going to be. I mean, He says, "Peace, family." We saying peace back, brother. Always good to have you. Grateful,
Peace,
very
peace,
grateful.
peace and light. Well, that was about 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 4, but there's a couple people that I want to shout out specifically. Hey, listen, it's all love to everybody. First of all, if you don't hear your name shouted out, it's all love. Thanks for the support. Hit the share button. But this beautiful sister right here is always in the building, rocking with me, whatever the case is. Shouts out. She's tapping in. And I think a couple of my people are in here already know, get your pen and your paper. This is going to be a classroom setting. Crom got a fast PowerPoint. And I'm not sure, but Crom, what I usually do is at the end of it, I usually offer the PowerPoint for sale. So that'd be up to Crom if he wants to do that, whatever the case is. You can shoot him an email, whatever the case is. But because a lot of people, we go through the live and there's so much information. I want to get them the opportunity to kind of sit down on their own and kind of go through the information at their own pace. And of course, the Empress is in the building, Queen of Force and Healing Ministry. She's always tapping in with me, man. Like always. Oh, hold on. I see one more. Deshaun, it's brother. I gotta get back in the gym. I'm getting in the gym. Deshaun Marshall, I'm coming, bro. I'm coming for you. This brother here, big supporter with me over on TikTok. Appreciate it. TikTok is growing. I appreciate y'all. A lot of y'all been following me in Crom for years, so y'all already know the information. But it's a lot of new TikTokers on there. Information is kind of mind blowing to them, and I'm grateful to be over there. And the platform is growing steady. I'm not as consistent over there as I need to be, but the platform is steady growing nonetheless. So, what we got, bro?
Okay, so I try my best to do word of the day to really make it educational. So the word of the day today is going to be eugenics. That's going to be one you can write down, or just reach out to the Minister of Information. He'll work something out with you on whatever the price he feels is fair for the disciples and the master students. But the word of the day is eugenics. Definition: the study of how to arrange reproduction within a human population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as desirable. Developed largely by Sir Francis Galton as a method of improving the human race, eugenics was increasingly discredited as unscientific and racially biased during the 20th century, especially after the adoption of its doctrines by the Nazis in order to justify their treatment of the Jews, disabled people, and other minority groups.
Now, this subject itself is something that I've talked about quite a bit and extensively quite a few times. I don't think people really understand the gist of eugenics and how important and what the impact it was on our people during the 20s. And I'm trying to look ahead, but there's a couple things that we have to keep in mind. There's two aspects to eugenics. There's positive eugenics and negative eugenics. The positive eugenics was introduced to increase the white population during the latter part of the 1800s, early part of the 19th century. So just wanted to point that out. But this is a great point. Write down the name Sir Francis Galton. Pen and pad, gang. Write down that name, Sir Francis Galton. Please continue, bro.
The origins of American eugenics. Throughout American history, slave owners would rip babies from their mothers' arms and sell them to other plantations. White slave owners who practice, and not just white, but that's another PowerPoint. White slave owners who practiced this heartbreaking method didn't care. They only cared about making profit off the enslaved people that they called quote unquote property. For example, so-called African-American slave woman Henry Bibb, depicted in the image on the right, is considered one of America's primary cases when it comes to white slave owners stealing enslaved so-called African-American babies. Often, soon after Bibb's auction occurred, she was sold to the highest bidder, Brown Dean L. Barbaric. America's Cruel History of Separating Children from Their Parents, the Washington Post WP Company, the 28th of the 10th month of the 2021st century.
Damn. Now, I've seen that picture several times on Google. I also want to point out that this picture is from the second domestic slave trade, which took place in the latter part of the 1800s, by the way. This is not in Africa. This is not an African picture. This is not African people. These are people here, right here in the continent of North America. But the information you just put out, I had no idea about that. Wow. Continue.
Destroying black families through separation. On March 2nd and 3rd, 1859, the biggest African American slave auction took place. The slave auction took place outside of the historically rich Savannah, Georgia, at the 10 Browick Racecourse. There were about 450 slaves at the auction. This auction exhibited men, women, kids, and infants. Potential buyers from Alabama, Georgia, North and South Carolina, and Louisiana came to the auction. And this is a picture of that auction. Monroe Christopher for sale, 436 humans. The Atlantic Media Company, the 22nd of September 2014 is the source. Although this is considered to be the biggest African American slave auction on documentation, the same auction method has been widely used by white slave owners across the entire United States of America. Slave auctions allowed for the African American family unit to be destroyed. These families were destroyed through methods of separation. So here is just some documentation. We don't want to, speculate, spread rumors, assume, This is black and white.
Right. Wow.
For sale, long cotton and rice, Negroes. A gang of four. This is just the actual thing that we're referencing. This is the actual for sale sign, I guess, yard sale.
Oh man, the gator bait situation. This is crazy.
Southerners stated that white men used black babies as alligator bait in the swamps of Louisiana and Florida. They used the babies to lure large alligators with human flesh and blood during the era of slavery. They kidnapped the babies, skinned them alive, and dropped them into swamp waters. This is according to Black History 24/7. David Emery, were black children used as gator bait in the American South. This is from Snoops.com. And alligator bait, May 2013, Ferris State University. Those are the references.
Now, with the gator bait, this was very popular down in the Louisiana area, where they would take newborn and infant Negro children and set them in cages, and the loud cries and squealing of the babies would draw the attention of the alligator. And they put them right on the bank, or they just let them roam around the banks of the swamp to catch the alligators. Talking about something cruel. This is about the cruelest shit I've ever seen in my life, man. And again, this was the early 1900s, going into the mid 1900s. So things with eugenics and just eradicating the undesirables, so they call them. This is where Nazi Germany got their blueprint from, and I prove that later.
My mic, sorry. 3/5 of a person? Question mark. The three, and minister can definitely clarify this. The 3/5 clause, Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, 1787, says for congressional representation purposes, all enslaved black peoples will be counted as 3/5 of the number of white citizens that inhabited a certain state. Black people didn't have voting rights, certain ones, during the period of this clause and so forth. I've got to correct that. That's not entirely true. My apologies. Black people weren't valued enough to be classified as full citizens with rights. Not true either. Elements of black inferiority can be seen countless times through American history, which is why things like 3/5 clause. All right, this whole thing, can you clarify this, minister? Because I don't think this is absolutely true.
Hold on. Let me blow my screen up a little bit. It's kind of small. There we go. It says the 3/5 clause, Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, 1787, says that congressional representation for purposes all enslaved blacks would be counted as 3/5 person number of white citizens that inhabited certain states. The only thing, the date stamp looks a little bit off a little bit, because we don't get into this until you get into what's called the Missouri Compromise, or what's called the Great Compromise, is when they was trying to figure out if Missouri is going to be a slave state or not, and that's when the 3/5 the 3/5 idea came into play. And they're not saying that black people are 3/5 of a person. They said for every 5 Negroes, count 3 for voting purposes. And then to do with your humanity. And that need to be, because people say it all the time. It means 3/5 of a person. Like, no, that was count 3 out of 5 for voting purposes. And that was under what's called the Missouri Compromise. Let me see. I can pull it up just for a quick receipt or reference check to cross-reference. Sorry. And as we told you guys today, man, this is a classroom setting. So definitely hope you're not here to be entertained. We definitely gonna learn a little bit today. Hold on, let me share my screen real quick. So what I'm pulling up now is called the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Did it populate? There we go. So write that down. This is called the Missouri Compromise, and citation source is archive.gov. This is the citation site, archive.gov. Missouri Compromise 1820. The legislation. This is a piece of legislation introduced. They had concerns about. This is during what's called the part of the Western expansion, and that won't go fully into play until around like 1849. But this legislation admitted Missouri as a slave state and Maine as a non-slave state at the same time, so as not to upset the balance between slave and free states in the nation. It also outlawed slavery above the 36th parallel of the Louisiana territory, with the purchase of Louisiana territory and the application of Missouri for statehood. The long-standing balance between the number of slave states and the number of free states would change. Conversationally arose within Congress over the issue of slavery. Congress adopted this legislation and admitted Missouri as a slave state and Maine as a non-slave state. So without going into too much, you guys can look it up yourself, but this provision held for 34 years until it was replaced by the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. And to 1857, the Supreme Court ruled that the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional in the Dred Scott and Stanford decision. So as you can see right there, it led to the Dred Scott case as well. So this is mainly impacting legislation on voting for the 3/5 situation of a person. So it wasn't really the person, it was just out of 5 people, count 3 for voting purposes. Please continue.
The Negro problem. The elimination and mass destruction of the black race didn't stop at harsh and direct methods. Although lynching, baiting, and family separation was one way to do it, as society enhanced, methods of extermination advanced against the black race, so-called. Lots of philosophical studies were established and endless amounts of scientific research was conducted on how to fix the Negro problem. The eugenics was the new method that arose shortly after slavery concluded, and many scientists and leaders had a lot to contribute. Many of the philosophers and scientists involved made tremendous impacts by influencing each other and furthering the progress of the eugenics movement by conducting research studies on several occasions. They would mass publish their theories for public use. Shall I continue?
I want to share something else with that Negro problem. As soon as I saw it, this came to mind right here. It's called the Negro Project, and that was part of the Negro problem. And we'll probably talk about her a little bit later too. If you don't know who that is, please stick around.
That's right. The black man has never been a competitor, but has always been subservient to the white race. And just so long as he remains subservient, his position is secure. And just as soon as he becomes a competitor, his fate is sealed. It is not necessary that he should work for a white master or remain a menial. I'm sorry. It is not. Okay. Yeah. In a country whose natural resources are undeveloped, as is the case with the South, a man may serve a municipality or a state. May serve a municipality or serve a state. In North Carolina, for example, there is need for men to develop her farms and to work in her factories. There is a need of day labor, carpenters and masons, dressmakers, laundry women, and so long as the Negro renders this service, he is protected by the white man as a gardener protects his hot hothouse plants. This is from Benjamin K. Hayes in his book Natural Selection and the Race Problem.
Now, this also goes in line with the information that the late great what's the queen name? Good Lord, her name escapes me. But she basically rewrote the ISIS paper. Oh, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing does an excellent job dealing with the race relation between blacks and white in a certain time period, and it was also dealing with what's called genetic survival.
Correct. Johann, there is no J. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach was a German physician, naturalist, physiologist, and anthropologist. He is considered to be a main founder of zoology and anthropology as comparative scientific disciplines. He was also important as a race theorist. He was one of the first to explore the study of humans as an aspect of natural history. His teachings in comparative anatomy were applied to his classification of human races, of which he claimed there were 5. Number 1, Caucasian. 2, Mongolian. 3, Malayan. 4, Ethiopian. And 5, American. He was a member of what modern historians call the Göttingen School of History. Blumenbach's peers considered him one of the great theorists of his time. He was a mentor or influence on many of the next generations of the next biologists, generation of Germans, including Alexander von Humboldt.
Now, he was one of many. Johann Blumenbach was the first one to introduce the idea of terms like Caucasian, because the term Caucasian wasn't even around until he came up with it. I'm not sure if you're going to pull him, or he's in the PowerPoint, but another gentleman by the name of Carl Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus was the father of modern taxonomy. And you're going to see Carl Linnaeus, Samuel Morton, and all these white pseudoscientists try to create race classification based on zoology and things of that nature. And this is when they begin to theorize that Negroes were inferior based on the skull shape and various other situations. But this is called pseudoscience. It's false science. But it was the brand new field of study in the late 1800s. Late 17th century, mid 18th century, going to the 20th century. So this side up people like he had a book called The Rising of a Colored Tide. I can't think of his name right now. But and please write these names down we're talking about. Like Frederick Blumenbach. There was one more fella who wrote a book. Yeah, okay. Lothrop Stoddard. Thank you. I saw his face. So I just want to point out that everybody that Crumb is showing you, this was all part of that pseudoscience community, which ends up, it goes all the way out to what's his name, the father of gynecology, all the way out to him. So all these jokers we're showing you, write the names down, remember their faces, please. Please continue.
So Johann goes to Göttingen School of History. The Göttingen School of History was a group of historians associated with a particular style of historiography located at the University of Göttingen in the late 18th century. This group of historians played an important role in creating a scientific basis for historical research and were also responsible for coining two fundamental groups of terminologies in scientific racism. Blumenbach and Miner's color terminology for race: Caucasian, white; Mongolian, yellow; Malayan, brown; Ethiopian, black; American, red. This is where all that comes from. This dude in his school. The minister often says race is something that was invented. This is who invented the concept of race. This is where he invented it. Prior to this, there was no such thing as a white man.
Nope.
No such thing. When we say you're not black, we didn't come. Whoa, black. Who came? They came up with black.
Yep.
And I think Nobuju Ali said, "Hey, stop calling yourself black and Ethiopian."
What the prophet has said, according to what's written, anyway, it says there are no such people as black, Negro, and colors. For those are all titles given to you by slaveholders in 1776 and lasted to about 1865. But now this is a new era in time where you must proclaim your free national name and worship under your own vine and fig tree, Islam. So that's what it said. Like there is no nationality attached to it. Black, Negro, color, white, yellow, red man. That's pseudoscience, family. No such thing.
No such thing as a black man. Oh, Crumb, we're not on no more science. I mean, it is more science, sure, but when we say it's no, we're talking about this. We're saying this is pseudoscience. That's all we're saying. Nobody's trying to convert you. We're just saying if you want to call yourself black, nobody's going to debate you and argue, but you're just perpetuating this. Who coined the term eugenics? Sir Francis Galton coined the term eugenics in 1883. He identified eugenics as the science of improving racial stock. Galton emphasized the importance of positive eugenics, as the minister was saying. He encouraged the people whom he considered physically and mentally superior members of a population to choose partners with similar traits.
So this right here was signed, sealed, stamped, and you see it's 1883, family. Slavery ended in 1865, supposedly. So look at the timestamps on everything, because well, I'll just wait for that. But Sir Francis Galton was a big time pseudoscientist. He was also a zoologist too, and supposed anthropologist. So what's going to happen is now that there's a huge population explosion of so-called Negroes in America, these Caucasian scientists trying to figure out scientifically how to either pump fear in society about how docile they say we are, how docile we are, how lazy we are, and that's directly connected to criminality. And our uneducated population is directly connected to our criminality behavior. So you start getting stuff like vagrancy laws, and that was only to put Negroes back into slavery, according to the 13th Amendment. Slavery or involuntary servitude is illegal unless you're incarcerated for a crime. So this is all part of the first crime act prior to Reagan and Clinton. This was the first initial one to lock away Negroes. Go ahead, bro.
Well, let me just interject right there. This is the second one. The first Vagrancy Act was on white people. White people were the first slaves. They had the first Vagrancy Act. By the time they got it to you was this is the second, third time around of slavery. You're not the first slaves, family. If you buy into that story, fine. I'm not going to debate you, but just got to understand they were slaves first, and that's where the Vagrancy Act comes from. It was come from them. They were the hobos. No disrespect to nobody, just history.
No, facts. That's fact. All facts. And that same okay, yeah, I'm glad you, yeah, because I was about to look, because you know there's a whole documentary on YouTube called the M.O.I. Black Holocaust, and it's a dope ass documentary, and they give you blow for blow. It's like a 2-hour situation on YouTube, but I watched it 3 or 4 times, and that's how I learned about all these people. And that quote was on there.
Powerful. Okay. Wrong way. Galton quote, sir, I don't join in the belief that the African is our equal in brain or heart. I do not think that the average Negro cares for his liberty as much as an Englishman, or even has a self-born, or even as a serf-born Russian. And I believe that if we can, in any fair way, possess of his services, we have an equal right to utilize them to our advantage. This is in Negroes and the Slave Trade, a letter to the Times from Francis Galton. Eugenics, December 26, 1857. This is right before slavery ended.
But this was the attitude. You have to remember, around the same time, I think a little bit later, the 1900s, is when they showed. Let me look it up. Let me get the right information. Is when they showed the first film, "The Birth of a Nation," at the White House. Let's see here. I can tell you right now. But the whole point, it was 1915. So yeah, a little bit later. This 1898 time frame. A little bit later, 1915, what was them showing Birth of a Nation. So these quotes and everything from Galton, along with Eugenics, was the white society effort and to try to snuff out any type of notion that black people were superior, even though they knew we were superior. By this time frame, they've been digging around the globe, and they've been digging the pyramids already was up. They've been digging some pretty cool shit that we've been doing for thousands, if not millions of years. So they knew who we were. And they figured if we don't get out in front of this shit right now with a smear campaign, we're going to be in trouble. And this was part of the smear campaign.
Galton goes on with another quote. Average Negroes possess too little intellect, self-reliance, and self-control to make it possible for them to sustain the burden of any respectable form of civilization without a large measure of external guidance and support. This is Francis Galton, Africa for the Chinese, to the editor of the Times. Galton explicitly states his inferior views of the Negro/African race. He views the Negro as a species incapable of having an intellectual capacity for self-reliance. Because he's going to make an argument that, you know, this is going to cause for extermination, or the preference of bad genes, as the minister was saying, criminality.
Yep.
Charles Darwin. Darwin was Sir Francis Galton's first cousin.
Yep.
So this guy, the minister and I have been telling you about, his daddy's brother. This is not second, third, fourth. No, this is they first cousins. This is Charles Darwin's cousin, as they shared the same grandfather. Okay, not the daddy's brother, but the grandfather's brother. They both inspired each other. Charles Darwin, too, held a very dark and evil set of opinions for anyone who was an African of African descent. He often referred to black people as gorillas, the uncivilized species, Negroes, etc. Shall I read this quote?
Yes, please.
This is Charles Darwin. At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. At the same time, the anthropomorphous apes, as Professor Schockenzugel has remarked, will no doubt be exterminated. The break will then be rendered wider, for it will intervene between man and a more civilized state, as we may hope, than the Caucasian, and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of at present between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla. What? Can you see that? Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no, please.
Darwin is very well known for writing The Origin of Species in the 1800s. This book gave rise to evolutionary theory. What people don't know is that there was actually a longer original title to this book, and that was On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Now, copies and editions that they made afterwards eliminated that phrase about the favored races. Evidently, they understood then that it was politically incorrect.
Some may defend Francis Galton because eventually that he rejected slavery, but they do point out that all of his wealth did derive from the slave trade, but also it needs to be known that he, as well as other eugenists, did not reject slavery until after it had ended, and they could not any longer exploit blacks legally. So at that point, it would have been quite easy for he and his cohorts to reject slavery. I think this is a point that we all have to really realize, that the eugenics movement was not invented by the everyday average white American, but by a select group of wealthy white elitists that had often used this ideology to pit all of white America against Black America.
I just wanted to point it out. What I'll do, family, is drop the link in the comments if you guys want to check that out a little bit later. But as you was making that point, good brother, I'm like, damn, I clicked the video. He was right on that same part which he was talking about, and I want to show the family that there's a lot more information out there. What we're sharing with you guys is just a snippet and kind of the hard points, the hard takeaways. Please continue though.
Charles Darwin was married to his first cousin. Can I breathe right now for a second and ask the family if they could just type in
what the fuck?
Can somebody in the audience type a damn Gino? Yeah, you and your cousins them talking all this garbage.
Damn.
About, genetics and superiority and this and that, and you supposed to be so smart, and you married your first cousin. If you married your first cousin, then you don't understand eugenics, bro. I'm sorry. If you married your first cousin, you don't understand genetics. You don't understand. Let me keep going. I'm sorry. Charles Darwin was married to his first cousin and had 10 kids with her. 3 kids unalived at a very young age, likely because of health issues caused by incest. A confused and perplexed Darwin was advised by his cousin Galton that his progeny woe were caused by the kinship of him and his wife. Darwin married his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood. His sister also married one of her Wedgwood cousins, and 2 other Wedgwood cousins married their Darwin first cousins. In all, there were 4 first cousin marriages constituting the Darwinian pedigree.
And see, this come out of Europe too, bro. Because I think you talked about this a while ago. Was the Blue Bloods and how they were trying to keep the race pure, the blood pure by intermarrying within and having sex within their own people. And this is something that they claim it was practiced throughout Africa. I haven't seen the records of that. They said the ancient Egyptians actually practiced that type of marriage when they only had sex with. I don't think they had sex with the cousins. I think it was just mainly, like, for example, Ethiopians are very easy to spot because their bloodline is pretty pure. I think they've been amalgamated with too many other invaders throughout history, but you can tell Ethiopian from anybody else on the planet, or Etruscan, I think they call them, just based on their phenotype. So out of what we're talking about right now with Charles Darwin and Francis Galton and so on and so forth, you're going to see legislation starts to happen around Virginia first, with mixing of races. They're going to outlaw race mixing. That right there is the start of the idea of race mixing cannot happen, because the white population understood that they only had a few people left. And understand also that this is the latter 1700s, early 1800s, going to the 19th century. Only about maybe 200 years, Europeans were dwindling in Europe, and the numbers were even lower in the United States or the new colonies over here. And that's where we get to fast forward into 1920. You get Ellis Island, the influx of immigrants or migrants, they call them, coming over from Europe, which is what's happening right now. They're flooding the United States with migrants or immigrants from Mexico to shut out or to overwhelm another race. And it's going to be our race, unfortunately. And I think, what's his name? Dr. Claude Anderson talked about this about 10 years ago. Dr. Claude Anderson gave the whole plan of what's about to happen in America. And one of the things Dr. Claude Anderson pointed out was they're gonna overshadow us. They're gonna outwork us, take our job. But what Trump said, take our black jobs. And everybody focus on the fact that Trump said black jobs, not the fact that he's telling the fucking truth. All these little low-hanging fruit jobs that we got out here hustling and getting it in. And we really had our window for the last 5 years, maybe, of becoming these millionaire black entrepreneurs. And people are turning into intemperance by trying to hustle and scam. Well, that window is closing, family. Another 18 months, if you're not in the entrepreneurial game, and I don't mean selling t-shirts, I mean actually earning capital with your business, actually running your business as a person of color, you're gonna be shut out, because these foreigners, these migrants, immigrants coming over here, they're building, they're creating wealth, and you can see them. I don't care where you live at. If you see Mexicans, they're in a work truck, or they're building houses, or they're doing something constructive. Meanwhile, we're on Twitter and Instagram twerking. So there's that. Continue, please, though.
Charles Darwin. It wasn't uncommon for first cousins to marry in the 19th century. However, Charles knew from his contact with animals and plant breeders that inbreeding can cause both bad and good things to happen. It's clear that from the very beginning of his engagement, he was keen to interpret their relationship and later the kids who would be born as natural history phenomena. Wow. Darwin observed his kids as closely as he monitored apes in the London Zoo to see which inherited traits they displayed. Sure enough, all of them fell victim to his own defective digestive condition. His oldest daughter unalived at age 10 with severe gastrointestinal problems, and one after another, the remaining 7 fell ill at about the same age. Over a 15-year period, Darwin discovered how hereditary works when first cousins marry. I bet you did.
Like, this don't work too well.
Right. Sorry. Darwin's 5 surviving sons became involved in the eugenics movement. His son George compiled statistics on the offspring of first cousin marriages and also checked lunatic asylums for trace of inferior human beings. His youngest son, Horace, the sickliest of the lot, started an engineering company to make anthropometric instruments used in measuring body parts to assess genetic quality. Both sons worked closely with Francis Galton, their uncle. Not their second cousin, I don't know how that works. Eventually, most of the Darwin brothers moved to Cambridge and joined the Cambridge University Eugenics Society, all deeply concerned with the proliferation of subnormal working-class kids in town. Darwin's second youngest son, Leonard, succeeded Galton as president of the British Eugenics Society.
And before we jump too far off in it, I want people to understand that the Eugenics Society and the entire project of eugenics started in Cold Springs, New York. Okay. And I'm pretty sure he's in here somewhere, but when we get to Eugene Fisher, I want to point out something with him if he's in the slide somewhere. That's Lauder Stoddard. Eugene Fisher was a key right there. American Eugenics Society. There we go. Okay. I just wanted to point that out because I know you just had mentioned it. I want people to kind of get prepared for that information.
Yes, sir. Okay. Sorry, this thing is just so long. Okay, here we go. And let me just screw it. Darwin on the favored races. Charles Darwin wrote a book called On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life, 1859. This book is considered to be the foundation of evolutionary biology. In this book, Darwin analyzes what he calls inferior and superior traits amongst races. He also discusses natural selection. This book gave rise to the evolution theory. Shall I continue?
Yeah, I want to understand that the evolution theory, evolution chart has nothing to do with us. In fact, also 1 second, let me show this right here. I'm gonna pull up on my screen. Evolution. Here we go. Let me share my screen real quick. And I want you guys to take a look at this chart. That chart has nothing to do with y'all or us. These charts has nothing to do with us. You won't see a Negroid person on these charts. You're only going to see them on the chart because this entire time period, they're actually trying to track the origin of their species, Caucasian, because they really have no origin. So between Charles Darwin and other pseudoscientists as Johann Buchenbacher, you have other archaeologists. Now, Crom is only showing you guys who are called anthropologists. You're going to have archaeologists also step in around the 1920s, like Dr. Leakey, and they're going to discover an origin of species in Africa known as Africa robustus or Zanthropus. And this is just Europeans trying to find out where they come from, where we come from, who they are, who we are, and of course we're the father of civilization. So this is all encompassing everything. The evolutionary chart, Charles Darwin, Francis Galton. Now the hatred is going to come in a little bit later when we go through the PowerPoint. I'm going to start pointing out where the hatred and slander started to come in with Black people is when they realized how inferior they were. So talks of superiority had to be taught to Europeans because they really found out that they were inferior to who we were. So I just want to point that out.
Okay. Charles B. Davenport. In 1902, Davenport, who at the time was a professor of zoology at the University of Chicago, asked the infamous Carnegie Institution for 45 thou wow to conduct a biological experiment station for the study of evolution. His research specialized in the analytical and experimental study of causes of specific differentiation, I can't say that word, of race change. Davenport, along with his ideology and conducted research, was endorsed by Calvin Coolidge, Margaret Sanger, and Herbert Hoover. These are big
names. Now, at this point, Margaret Sanger only had out a pamphlet, and her pamphlet was on birth control. Now, Charles Davenport is going to give her a position but she's not going to be under the Eugenics Society. She's going to be under what's called the American Birth Control League. So the American Birth Control League also comes into play with the Eugenics Society, and this one you get your birth control pills and all that stuff coming from. And the whole thing was just to rid society of the undesirables. And they had to use titles like undesirables and feeble-minded, another term to come into play too. And the last case was in 1984 in South Carolina. His sister was sterilized. So that's something that we're not seeing yet in the PowerPoint, and we'll get there in a second. I believe that eugenics is a method of sterilization, family.
Brother, could I put my tinfoil hat on? I mean, I want to ask the family, and I know I'm about to sound crazy. Bear with me. I know I'm about to sound crazy, but to the listening audience, if you suspect that when we talk about this whole eugenics and this breeding and the origins of these genetic anomalies, if you suspect this is probably has something to do with maybe Yakub, could you press 222?
Hold on. What was the question now? What was the question?
If anybody in the listening audience thinks that when we're talking about this because they were trying to figure out the origins, and you showed the whole monkey thing. If anybody suspects that their origins, this whole monkey thing that the minister showed of their evolution, because the minister said that's them, not us. He said that. He said that. He said it's not them, it's not us, it's them. So I'm listening to him. I said, okay. He said it's not us, it's them. He showed the monkey thing. Okay, he's showing the monkey thing. I don't know. Does this seem a little bit Yakub to anybody? Well, could it be that they were created and they're just trying to find their origins? Like anybody would do that. I would say, hey, I just want to know who my daddy is. And Yakub name was changed to Israel, the father of all nations. You want to know who your daddy is? That's reasonable. But there's this one dude, his name is Yakub, and they call him, this is in the Bible, Israel, the father of all nations. Oh, no, I think Abraham was the father of all nations. But I know Israel's in that bloodline. Israel, otherwise known as Yakub, Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, that Jacob. If you want to know who your daddy is, they a lot of people say he was a part of this genetic breeding program. Even in the Bible, with the breeding program with Yakub and his uncle. So Yakub has is a twin. He has a brother named Esau. He sells Esau the bowl of porridge for his birthright. You scammed him. There should be a lemon law. You scammed your brother. Your mama helped you scam your brother. Then you dress up like your brother and scam your daddy. Remember, the biggest crime is playing tricks on old folks. You scam your daddy. Then you go to your uncle's house, Laban, and Laban means white. In Hebrew, the word Laban means white. You're the father of all nations. You create the 12 tribes of Israel, and your uncle, who you did this genetic breeding program with, his name is white. I don't know. I'm tripping, brother.
Well, I mean, something else happened, and it's a form of leprosy in the Bible. Points out. I think Abraham stuck his hand in his bosom and pulled his hand out. It freaked him out. He wasn't white. Like, oh, wait a minute. And he put his hand back in and it turned back black. So yeah, just want to point that out. You're right.
Yeah, ain't that something, y'all? Davenport. Let's read a quote from Davenport. The problem of the socially fit must be treated not as one of color, but as a problem of the spread of feeble-mindedness and physical weakness in organized society. From this point of view, the social problem in the South is the same as that in the North, only it is larger in that it involves a larger proportion of the whole population. Whoever, if the demand is cheap labor in the north, shall come along, shall long continue to lure the weaklings of Europe to our northern cities. The north will soon have on its hands as a large problem at the south has now. I'm sorry, let me try that again. However, if the demand for cheap labor in the north shall long continue to lure the weaklings of Europe to our northern cities, the north will soon have on its hand a larger have on its hands as large of a problem as the south does now. The problem in which its turn arose from the demand for cheap labor. This is the Eugenics movement by John Pike.
Now, I never heard of John Pike before. I'm not sure who he is, but that was new information for me. So appreciate that. Charles Davenport is another important person. Again, Coal Harbor Springs, New York. It was known as the American Eugenics Society or American Birth Control League. Please write him down.
Well, brother, we are rounding on the hour. If we don't stop, it's really up to you. Depending on how many likes we have, I don't know what your barometer is, but I say we take a real quick commercial break. Talk about the Cash App, talk about hitting the like button, things like that, blah blah blah, whatever you got going on.
Sure, let's get it.
Okay, so family, we are rounding on the hour, so I think it's about time for us to really call it quits, even though, just to give you an idea of what's next within the next hour on the next show, we're going to be going into the Ben Ishmael tribe. So right here, we just left New York. The minister told you we've been in New York the whole time for the most part. We've been in the north. We're a bunch of northerners talking. So now we're about to go into the Midwest. The minister already told you about the Missouri Compromise. We got to go, to the Western expansion, where when white people expand west, they're going to come into a tribe called the Ben Ishmael tribe. Abraham Lincoln and the gang, a bunch of all of these Melungeons and blah blah blah. But before we get into these swarthy looking people,
yeah.
But before we get into an hour of talking about the Ben Ishmael tribe, tell you where Elvis and them came from, we're going to see, can we stop this thing and maybe just do it again another day? Let's see how many likes we have. Let me see how many likes we have right now.
I know we're about at 125 viewers, 125, 122.
And there's only 37 likes. Yeah, brother. I'm going to say the family is not necessarily interested. I'm not trying to hold nobody hostage. I know people got stuff they want to do. We're about to get into this. This is what's next. If we go over to the next hour, this is what we're going to be talking about.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I don't know where you're at, but you're going to have to hit the like button if you want the next measure. You're going to also have to drop a comment. Talk black to me. Say something.
We need the engagement, y'all. A lot of y'all just watch. Is the little I button mean 120 people are watching. Like, we need activity. Like, we can't fight against Skynet, which is the algorithms in the AI. I love the fact you said that, Skynet, because I was just explaining that how somebody posted a picture of Sarah Connor looking back at us using AI and Bluetooth, all that shit, shaking her head like, Lord. I thought it was funny as hell. Like, damn, Sarah Connor was right. It's coming.
Skynet, that's right.
Skynet is coming. So, but yeah, I'm all for it, bro. You want to take a hard pause and come back to it. Circle back. I think in a later time of the day, people may be at work. I'm not sure, but we get a little bit more activity. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so with that said, can you tell us what your Cash App is, Minister?
Scroll across the bottom, Chef J Ponder, drop a donation in the Cash App. You get an opportunity. You already know, man. I like the kind of change that makes sound, but the ones that fall from the sky is also good too. So drop $1 too, like we always do it. And of course, this PowerPoint, once we go through the PowerPoint will be up for auction. I'm joking with y'all, but you can definitely purchase the PowerPoint at some point after we go through it, and then it'll just be for your own study. You go to college, you got to buy your books at college, right? So treat this like a collegiate. It is collegiate information. The PowerPoint will be your guide to help you guys out to understanding eugenics and everything today. So, yes, sir.
And
Appreciate
you know, let me just say this: this is not for sale. This is not for sale. It cannot be taxed. This is a donation, family. So
Absolutely.
If you want the PowerPoint, then just donate $10 to the Minister of Information. If you want the PowerPoint, donate $10 to the Minister of Information. We'll get you that today. This PowerPoint is more than 100 slides long, so tap all the way in that regard. Minister, thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful.
Appreciate it, bro. Peace and love, everybody. Tap in next time. Peace.
You are now watching Crumb TV.
You watching Crumb TV.
This is Prema Osset in Los Angeles, Leimert Park, and you are now watching Crumb TV.
You are watching Crumb TV.
And we're watching Crumb TV.
You are now watching Crumb TV. So subscribe.
I am the Grand Sheikess, Unity Temple number 80, More Science Temple of America, and you are watching Crumb TV.
Yo, this is that kid 179. You're now watching Crumb TV.
Crumb.